over these three problems. Use a calculator to find the angle that corresponds to each ratio. Round answers to the nearest degree, or if you had to add another word there, whole number. So pay attention to what it asks you. Number 10 says sine of x equals 0.5. I just want to draw you a visual of actually what we're doing here. You have this angle, and we don't know the opposite over the hypotenuse. We don't know what these side lengths are, but what I do know is that the ratio is 0.5. Now you could turn that fraction, decimal into a fraction, and you would get something like this, and then I can figure it out. The opposite is 1 and the hypotenuse is 2. But basically what we're saying is that they're giving you a ratio, these two sides divided by each other is 0.5. Everyone say arrows. Let's use our arrows. Doesn't matter if you do, let's do it from the fraction. Everyone say inverse. I am taking the inverse of both of these. And to take the inverse, I now have to note that. So I'm now taking the inverse of sine of 1/2 equals x. I've replaced the positions, I've switched them, and now I have the inverse. So now I can put that into my calculator. Just like the other trig functions we were using earlier, you only have the inverse of sine, cosine, and tangent. And in my calculator, see if I can make it darker, that is in blue in the back, which means I have to press my blue button first. So I'm going to press the inverse of sine, so I'm pressing second, and then now I'm pressing the sine button. And then your calculator will have the inverse of sine. You can put a fraction in there, just 1 divided by 2. And if you press enter, you will get 30. Now class, what mode is our calculator on? So what does this represent? Yeah, x represents 30 degrees. It actually tells us there. Do you see that? Use degree mode. Let's try the number 11. Class, what should I do? What is that symbol called? Everyone say inverse. Let's take the inverse. You should have arrows. Whoops, my arrow went too far. Remember, when you draw those arrows, you're going to draw that -1. So I have the inverse of sine. Class, what number am I going to write there now? 0.669 equals what? B. Put that in our calculator. You can kind of, not cheat, but if you know your calculator, in blue it says entry. So I'm going to press second enter. And the reason why I do that is basically copy and pasting the previous line. And then I can just go back and put 0.669 if you want. Another way of using your calculator. Okay, this problem said round to the nearest degree or whole degree. Class, what am I going to write? Approximately 42. Whoops, that was supposed to be the approximate sign. 42 degrees. Student number 12. Class, what should I do? Let's take the inverse. Draw those arrows. I know the student who struggles didn't draw the arrows. Now we're going to have this -1. Class, tell me what to write. Tan -1, or inverse of tangent of 1.881 equals. Okay, so here's my calculator ready equation. Let's put that into our calculator. So I'm going to press second, tangent, 1.881, enter. Okay, is approximately 62 degrees. 3 examples of using your calculator. Given two sides, you can find the angle using the inverse, basically means to switch.